Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. We're going to get started here as some folks continue to trickle into our webinar today. My name is Courtney Shizzle-McGraney, and I'm the executive editor of 750 Daily. And I'm super excited today to be joined by Frederic Weber, the cellar master for Bouchard Père-et-Fils, which is one of Burgundy's oldest wine merchants and one of the largest landowners in the Côte d'Or. And it was founded in 1731. The house is now owned by the Henriot family, which also owns the historic Champagne house, Champagne Henriot, if you joined us in March for our webinar with the Champagne house as well. Bouchard is also the largest landowner of Premier and Grand Cru vineyards in the Côte d'Or. Frederic was born in Alsace. He came from a family with winemaking roots, and he has experience working in Champagne, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, in Chablis, and of course in Bourgogne. He began working at Bouchard Père-et-Fils in 2002 and was promoted to cellar master in 2013. So welcome, Frederic. We're very excited to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I'm Bonjour New York.
Thanks so much for joining us today from Bourgogne, of course. So today, Frederic and I are going to discuss the history of Bouchard Père-et-Fils. We're going to talk about the special qualities of its parcels on Le Corton. And as we're also going to discuss the team's commitment to sustainability, which is a core pillar of their winemaking philosophy. So Frederic, to start off, why don't you tell me a little bit about the history of Bouchard and how it's kind of evolved over time?
Alors, the story of Bouchard Père-et-Fils, it's almost 300 years of history. We started with Michel Bouchard in 1731, and Michel Bouchard was a merchant of linen, and he started to purchase some barrel in Bourgogne, in every village. And during 40 years, he built a very strong knowledge about each appellation. And in 1775, when his son joined the company, Joseph Bouchard, he decided to purchase the first plot and a house in the town of Volnay. And the first plot was Volnay-les-Cailleraie, les Pomards-les-Rugiens, les Volnay-les-Taillepieds. And after that, during 9 generations, the Bouchard family continued to purchase vineyards, mostly around Volnay, Pomards, and just after the French Revolution in 1791, they could purchase some vineyard in Beaune with le Clos de la Mousse, les Beaunes de l'Enfant Jésus, les Saint-Landry. And in 1820, they purchased the Chateau de Beaune, and today the Chateau is the headquarters of Bouchard Père-et-Fils. And just after 1995, the Bouchard family decided to sold out, and now we continue with the Henriot family, but with the same philosophy. And the Henriot family and Joseph Henriot bought some very nice plot in Meursault. Mostly, today we are, yes, the most beautiful collection of Meursault Premier Cru with les Port-Rousseau, les Bouchards, les Perrières, les Geneuvrières. It's great with Meursault Charme, and also in Côte de Nuit. And that's explained after almost 300 years of history, we have certainly the most beautiful collection of terroir, with 130 hectares. It's more than 100 different plots, different terroirs, and all the estate from Gevrey-les-Castiers to the Morachet. And mostly in Premier Cru and Grand Cru. It's absolutely unique, and but for me, it's a passion to be able, and with my team, to vinificate so many different Premier Cru and Grand Cru. That's amazing for us.
Absolutely, we can kind of
the philosophy of Bouchard. It's to express le terroir, but also to respect the vintage. That is very important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We can kind of see how you've moved across, the Côte d'Or, and, you have a foundation being a Beaune house, but now you obviously have holdings both in the Côte de Nuit and the Côte de Beaune.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I know that sustainability is a core philosophy for Bouchard, and you've been undergoing this conversion to organic farming. Can you tell me a little bit more about the motivation behind this and how this process has unfolded?
Alors, yeah, our main, the goal is not the label.
Mhm.
It's truly more the philosophy about the organic and biodynamic and to respect the terroir. But after 300 years of history, we have also to transmit a beautiful terroir for the next generation and to protect the nature, because we depend of the nature, of the mother nature, and we have to protect them. And that's why since 10 years we progressively, excuse my poor English, we use more and more organic method, but also we developed the biodiversity in the vineyard, and we replant grass all around the plot. We do not cut it for the insect. We replant trees and lime trees to have more diversity. We restore the stone wall with natural matter, and the wall are also a house for a lot of different insects and small animals, and all of that, it's really important for us, and to recreate biodiversity and to respect the nature, and also to transmit for the future.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit more about what other sustainability efforts you're undergoing, both in the vineyards and in your winemaking?
Yes, yeah, because it's a global. In the vineyard, we do not use chemical products, but only organic product for the matter, for the soil. We employed only sulfur and copper to protect the vineyard. And but as I said, we replant trees, grass. We plug the soil mechanically. And after that, in the winery, we have a lot of effort to decrease the quantity of water to make wine. We try to decrease gas and to energy in the winery. And also, we do not use SO2 during the vinification. And if the nature is good with us, we do the minimum just to express the terroir, and to observe, to taste. And if sometimes it's necessary to do an intervention, and we do that, but it is a minimum.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the importance of highlighting the vintages, but of course, vintages have been variable in Bourgogne recently. Have you found it difficult to work in this way, or do you think it makes it more necessary to work in this way?
In fact, each year is different. The climate is different, and we have to adapt. And every year it's a challenge for us, because we work in the vineyard, we observe, we adapt our method, and we try to find the best way to express the terroir, and also to respect the style of the vintage. And Vigne de l'Enfant Jésus 20 and Vigne de l'Enfant Jésus 21 will be very different. The terroir still there, the style of the wine still there, but the 20 it's more powerful with a lot of color. The tannin is a little more present. 21 it's more elegant and very refreshness. But that is the style of the vintage, and we have to respect that, and that's why it's so passionate. It's we do not make Coca-Cola. Sorry for Coca-Cola, but every terroir is different, but also every vintage is very different. And for us, it's we have to adapt and to understand what's happened in the nature, and to do the best thing to express the terroir.
Absolutely. And I think part of what's beautiful about your wines and about Bourgogne in general is that we get to explore these different vintages and see the differences between the wines from year to year.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about Bouchard's presence in the Côte de Beaune. What does it mean for Bouchard to be a Beaune house?
Alors, historically, Bouchard is present in Beaune since a long time, because the first plot was arrived in the estate just after the French Revolution in 1791, and Bouchard we are the owner of the Chateau de Beaune. It's a very nice place, and it's a headquarter of Bouchard, and also we are certainly one of the largest owner in the Beaune area, mostly in the Beaune Premier Cru. In totally, we have more than 46 hectares, and with a lot of different Premier Cru, and this is very amazing, and all the Premier Cru are very different. For example, if you see a Beaune Letteron and a Beaune Marconnet, a Beaune Letteron, it's so elegant and very racy wine. A Marconnet, the soil it's more rich in clay, and it's a deep wine with more structure, a little more fresh in the tannin, and it's totally different. But it's a passion to see all the difference in the same area. And a Vigne de l'Enfant Jésus, it's like a Grand Cru, but the soil is also very different. And it's more sandy soil, and the delicacies of the tannin, it's so amazing with the spiciness. It's very specific of the Vigne de l'Enfant Jésus. Yeah, this is nice to have that.
Absolutely. Well, we don't have the Vin de l'Enfant Jésus with us today, but we do have the Beaune de Chateau. Speaking of Chateau de Beaune. And I'd love for you to take us through this wine a little bit. We have the 2018 vintage here today.
Yeah, alors le Beaune du Château, it's an historical cuvée. Because in fact, it's only one blend to Bouchard Père et Fils. In fact, we have in totally 17 different Premier Cru, and we harvest separately. I vinificate separately, but after that, I create a blend and all together to create the cuvée Beaune du Château, and we do that since 1907. And the Bouchard family created this cuvée, and I think it's today it's honestly a very nice entry to understand le Beaune Premier Cru and understand the Bouchard Père et Fils style, because I could play with the different terroirs and the style of each terroir, and to create a cuvée really a consistency year after year. And because you have with Les Beaunes Aigros, it's a very beautiful terroir. It's a lot of fruit and black fruit. Les Beaunes Avaux, it's a little more silky tannin. Les Sans Vignes, there is a lot of floral note. Les Beaunes Écus, it's more high in altitude. It's give a lot of freshness, and it's great to create this cuvée and to have a good expression of the Beaune Premier Cru.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that this is a good expression of the Bouchard Père et Fils style. How would you describe that style?
Bouchard Père et Fils, we would like to express the firstly the terroir and the vintage, but after that, I love the delicacy and the elegance in the wine. And for me, to have to respect the Pinot Noir. The Pinot Noir, the color is not so important. The most important is the complexity of the nose. And in Beaune, you have the strawberry and the jam of raspberry, and the tannin. It's very silky and round in the mouth. It's really appealing. And Le Beaune du Château, we have some spice in the hand, and we love that.
Absolutely. And since we're going to have all 2018 vintage here today, can you tell us a little bit about the 2018 vintage?
Alors, 18 was a warm and generous vintage. For us, the winter was really cold, and but with a lot of rainy winter. But that was very important because the soil keeps the damp. After that, and the summer was so hot and dry, but with the damp in the soil, the vineyard do not suffer of drought, of dryness. And that's permit to reach a very high maturity, and with a beautiful quantity also. And finally, 18 for me, it's a really nice vintage, and he expressed very well the terroir. The color is very beautiful, to have a true expression of each terroir. But also in 18, you have a good acidity for a long aging potential. Or certainly 17, it's better to drink now because it's more approachable. But 18, if you like the black fruit and a little more full body wine, and if you would like to keep it for aging, 18, it's a perfect example.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of 2018, now we're going to move on to some Grand Cru wines from the one and only Beaune Grand Cru, Le Corton or Corton Charlemagne. And I know that Bouchard owns 7 hectares, correct? In Le Corton. Can you tell me a little bit about the particular aspects of Bouchard's holdings in this Grand Cru?
Alors, for Le Corton, the Bouchard family purchased this vineyard in 1909, and it's a very nice situation. We are on the top of the hillock. It's more high in altitude. It's 300 meters of altitude, and it's east facing. And just in this part, the soil is really different because of the richness of the limestone, because the soil is rich in white rocky soil.
Mm-hmm.
The soil is poor. That's why the yield generally is low. But for the true expression of the Le Corton, for the red wine, it's great. A lot of people think Le Corton it's a masculine wine, with a strong tannin, you need a long aging, but not in this place, because especially in this place, because of the richness of the limestone that give a lot of elegance and a beautiful floral expression. And for the Corton, I love to use a high percentage of a whole cluster and with a very soft maceration. And for me, Le Corton, the first nose, it's you have the nose of the peony, of a bucket of flower, of the rose. Rose flower, and after that the tannin is present. You have some taste of the earth, but the tannin is really elegant, and the aging potential of the Le Corton, it's great.
Absolutely. And I know that this area has been farmed organically since 2019. Yes. So
yeah,
next vintage that gets released, we'll get to see the product of that. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you feel the Le Corton is expressing itself in this vintage in particular?
In 18?
In 18.
For me, certain 18 and 18 or 19. But I love 18 because it's certainly one of the best cuvées we made with Le Corton. For the expression, for the delicacy of the tannin, and also I think the balance is great, and the potential, the aging potential of the 18 vintage will be huge. And for me, 18 it's perhaps very close to the style of 1990. And I remember tasting of the Le Corton 1990, and I think honestly the 18 will have the same future. It's really a beautiful cuvée in 18.
So if we're around in many years, we'll be able to see how it ages like that.
You take pleasure, no, but just after 5-10 years, it's yes. Honestly, to Bouchard Père et Fils, we have we love all the wine, and but we are lucky because we have a very great collection of old wine from the 19th century, and it's but when you could taste a very old wine from Bourgogne, has l'Enfant Jésus, Le Corton, Chevalier Montrachet. The complexity of the aroma is very different, and it's more deep in the mouth. It's so complex, and the pleasure it's incredible. And if you could keep sometimes, that could be nice.
Absolutely. And moving on to the Corton Charlemagne, tell me a little bit about this wine.
Alors, in fact, the plot of the Corton Charlemagne is just above Le Corton. Alors, the two plots are separated by a stone wall. And this 3 meters of stone wall, and there is like a terraces. And in fact, this wall was exactly built on the geological phase. And the nature of the soil for the Corton Charlemagne is totally different. For Le Corton, it's red clay on limestone, and for the Corton Charlemagne, it's yellow marl, 80 centimeters, and after it's a bedrock of limestone. And the orientation, the altitude, it's almost the same. It's a 300 meters of altitude, east facing, but the nature of the soil, it's a white marl, and white marl, it's really perfect for the Chardonnay. That's why we planted Chardonnay on the upper part of this location. And it's rare to have Chardonnay on this part of the Corton area, and east and high in altitude. That's why for the Corton Charlemagne Bouchard, it's certainly there is more freshness with some lime trees and citrus notes, and it's a very elegant wine. A lot of Corton Charlemagne, it's more generous, a lot of powerful wine, but for the Charlemagne Bouchard, there is a little more white flower and more elegance, and with more acidity. And we are lucky because we do not have the evening sun, and that do not burn the berries, and that permit for us to keep the freshness and the purity of the Chardonnay.
And has the land that Bouchard cultivates in Le Corton and Corton Charlemagne, has it always been split 50-50 between Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, or has that changed over time?
No, that's never changed. In fact, the bottom part was planted with Pinot Noir because of the nature of the soil. On the upper part, it's a 4 hectares for the Corton Charlemagne because the soil it's white marl. Just a few. In the past, we as a Bouchard member tried to plant the Pinot in the upper part, but during 10 years we declassified with this wine because it was never good, and finally we replant Chardonnay because the soil is specifically for the Chardonnay.
So you tried something a little different, but
yeah, but no,
stick what's tried and true.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit about the oak regimen on these two wines?
Excuse me, I don't understand.
About the aging of these two wines?
Oh, the ageability, it's huge. If you have a good cellar, you could age a very long time. And certainly one of the best souvenir of tasting for the Corton Charlemagne, it's a magnum of Charlemagne 1955. This wine is absolutely great, and with the age, Corton Charlemagne, you continue to have a white flower, but also some creamy notes, and with apple pie, and that is, and it's more round, and there is some sucrosity in the finish. It's huge, but if you organize a dinner, you could open a Corton Charlemagne at the beginning with a scallop, with a fish, because Charlemagne is very fresh with a good saltiness and acidity. It matches very well. But after that, you keep a glass of wine, and during 1-2 hours during the dinner, and you finish with the Corton Charlemagne with the cheese, mostly with a Chateau, with a Comté, and that's matched very well because in the glasses the wine continues to evolve and it's become more creamy, and it's a perfect match with white cheese.
Lovely. Speaking of tasting these wines and enjoying these wines in a dinner setting or in a tasting, today we talked about the reds before the white wines. Is that typically how you do it when you lead tastings of your wines?
Yeah, that's a tradition. At Bouchard, we always start with the red wine, with the Pinot Noir, and we finish with the white because the Pinot, it's more delicate, with a silky tannin. And after the white, and especially when we finish a tasting, we finish with the Grand Cru, has les Chevaliers Montrachet and les Montrachet. la Cabot, and white it's very powerful with more saltiness and minerality, and it's very difficult to after that to taste a red wine. That's why we start with the red and we finish with the white.
Absolutely. So you've been, with the house, now for, 20 years? How have you seen things change, and how has your approach to winemaking changed over the time that you've been with Bouchard?
I have to respect the style of Bouchard Père-et-Fils, but also we evolve, and we would like to become better and better every year, and we try different way. But the main factor, we have to adapt to the global warming, and that is the most challenge for us in the future. And we adapt in the vineyard for the vinification, but in the respect of the nature and in the respect of the terroir. And we spend a lot of time in the vineyard to observe, to taste the berries, to take the good decision at the good moments. But we have to be very humble, and that the global warming could be it's challenging for us. Yeah.
And do you feel that attitudes are changing overall in the region, not just at Bouchard Père-et-Fils, but among all producers in the region?
Yes, all the producers. Yes, we depend on the nature, and we are really concerned by the global warming. Alors, we are lucky because we are situated in the north of the France. But just an example, I have the date of the harvest in the Bouchard history since 1731. And in the 19th century, we harvest in August twice. It was in 1714 and 1724. The 20th century just in 1822, and in the 20th century never. 21st century we harvest in August in 03, 7, 11, 18, 20. More and more we harvest more earlier in August or just at the beginning of September.
Yeah, and that's becoming more and more frequent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You spoke a little bit about and I should also say to anyone tuning in, if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'm happy to bring them up here as well. But you spoke a bit about the library that Bouchard Père-et-Fils has in its cellar. What does that add to your winemaking knowledge of the house? And are you releasing any of these wines to buyers as well?
The library of the old collection, it's like a library for my team, because when we taste a very old wine, and that's permit to understand the terroir, the ageability, the style of the house. But when we taste the wine, we have also the note of the former winemaker, and we know what's happened in the vineyard, what's happened during the vinification. And that is very important for us. It's a huge source of information for us, for the knowledgeable of the Bouchard style and each terroir, and that is great. And we have to continue this tradition. Every vintage, I keep a part of the production, and we put it in the cellar, and that is for the future. That's permit to release progressively all vintages for a restaurant, and to explain to people the beauty of old wine. But also after that, a very few parts that is for the next generation. We do not touch it.
Right.
And, but to maintain this collection, we have to change the cork every 25-30 years. And that's permit for us to taste the wine, to take notes, and to compare with the former notes, to see the evolution. That is very interesting for us. And also that's permit to maintain the collection and to assure to the clients the wine continue to still very good. And yeah, that's nice.
What are some vintages that are drinking particularly well right now from the library?
For the library, wow, 1949, it's just great, huge.
I can imagine.
The one of my Baby Jesus 49, it's truly my favorite of the cellar. And but for example, when I vinificate the vintage 2020, during the tasting on the barrels, immediately I compare with 1929, because 1929 the color was a very deep color, very black, and with a strong tannin and a very well structured wine. And today, if you taste a 29, you have the same impression. And that's permit to see the evolution of 2020 will be just huge. This vintage, it's an incredible vintage for the future.
See, now we all wish that we could taste the 1929 and the 1949, but I think there are probably very few of those bottles left. Looking ahead to the future of the region and of Bouchard Péri-Fils, what are the major things? We talked a little about sustainability, climate change. Is there anything else that you're focusing on as we move into the future of this house?
No, we continue in the own philosophy with the organic method, and more with the biodynamic, with the good dates, and in the respect of the nature. And honestly, we have to be really humble and to try to be better and better in the expression of wine, but also to could transmit a good landscape for our children.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that, someone who maybe is just getting to know the house or even thinks they know the house well, is there anything unexpected that, you think that people should take away from Bouchard Péri-Fils when they're thinking of your wines?
I'm very sorry. I have a problem with the connection. Yes.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm sorry. There is just an interruption.
No problem.
Could you repeat?
Sure. Are there any final takeaways that you think that, attendees today should know about the house and about its wines if they're just getting to know them?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
It's okay. We've talked about a lot today. So I was wondering if there was anything that we didn't discuss that folks should take away from the discussion. Anything we didn't discuss that we should know about Bouchard?
Est-ce qu'il y a autre chose que tu veux rajouter en fait qu'on n'a pas discuté?
Wonderful. Well, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to share them with us now. I'm happy to propose them in our discussion, but I know that Amélie also has some things to share about Bouchard Péri-Fils as well.
Hi, everybody. I was the voice before the face. Still French. However, I'm based in New York. I'm with Maison et Domaine Noir America, and I just wanted to touch on a few points so you can go further with us. You can stay in touch. So first and foremost, please follow us on social media, Instagram and Facebook. This is the shortest route path to see what Frédéric does, very, very often. But also, obviously, by all means, if you happen to be in Burgundy, come and visit us at the Chateau de Beaune. We have, I'm Alison, who works in my team, could be facilitating and coordinating, setting up a visit for you. Just keep in mind that, Burgundy has never been hotter, and no pun intended. Post-COVID, a lot of people are visiting, so please allow, some time, give us enough prior notice so we can make sure to set up something for you. I also want to point out that we have developed here in the United States what we call MDH Academy, which is an online education platform that is intended to have our partners and also anyone who's interested in our houses to get more and more educated. It's very interactive. You have a little quiz and very, very informative. And if you have an interest to join, please, feel free. You can access directly to our website, mdhamerica.com. There's like a button where you can just access directly to MDH Academy. And on our website, which is more like trade focused website as opposed to consumer, you can find like tools that you might need, whether it's review sheets, sales sheets, information take sheets, reviews, etc., etc. And last but not least, sorry that I had a long list, but that's the last one. We have a YouTube channel as well, MDH America, where you can find some of the prior recordings. We have like some short videos about our iconic wines and so on and so forth. There's a lot of material there that can be used as you'd like. So with that being said, thank you very much for joining today, and hopefully we'll have more opportunity to connect and talk about other wines with Sevenfifty and Frédéric.
Thank you so much, Amélie. We're so happy that you all joined us here today. We are going to send out all of the information that Amélie discussed in an email to you as well, so that you can have it in your hands. And we'll also send out a recording of this session if you have any follow-ups. But thank you so much, Frédéric. Thank you, Amélie, for being here today. I feel so lucky to be able to taste these wines. And I look forward to many more in the future.
Merci à vous. Bonne soirée.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.